Hello, my name is Dr. Carl Candlepot, and this is the orientation film for the Lost series of videos here on this channel. The channel was originally designed as a resource where Lost fans could come to understand the unique mysteries and ideas emanating from the 6 seasons of the show. Not long after the series began, however, there was a spoiler. And since that time, the following protocol has been observed. At the start of every video, a spoiler warning must be issued. Utmost importance. But once the warning is shown, if you have not seen through the indicated episode, you exit the channel in a timely fashion. Namaste, and good luck. Hey everyone, today's video is a little different than usual in the sense that it is more of a thematic analysis than it is a theory about what was going on in the world of the show. The reason for this is that there are a lot of topics relating to Jacob and the Man in Black that I plan on tackling, such as what abilities that they each have, the candidates, the infection, Alana's group, what are manifestations of the monster and what aren't, just to name a few. And to explain my thoughts on those things kind of first requires me to communicate my perspective on who these two are as characters, as well as what I feel they represent in the story. On a similar note, if you haven't seen this channel's Underworld video, it might be beneficial to go back and watch that first. The conclusions reached in that video are actually quite important to today's topic. If you do happen to enjoy this video and would like to support the channel, you can become a Patreon donor for as little as $1. Or you can support the channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and or sharing this video. If you know other Lost fans that might enjoy this channel, please do share it with them. And as always, if you have any thoughts about this video, be it questions or alternate theories, or if you have a suggestion for a topic you'd like to see a video on, please do comment those things below. But for now, let's get lost.
Two players, two sides. One is light, one is dark.
In the opening scene of the Season 5 finale, we are introduced to two men who are unfamiliar to us, the audience. One is dressed in white, and one is dressed in black. As they begin to converse, an all too familiar dynamic is quickly established. The Man in Black believes people are hopelessly predisposed toward conflict, sin, and corruption, whereas the Man in White seems to be on a continual quest to prove him wrong.
Still trying to prove me wrong, aren't you?
You are wrong.
Am I? They come, fight, they destroy, they corrupt. It always ends the same.
It only ends once. Anything that happens before that, it's just progress.
Now, I'm far from the first person to point out that the dynamic between these two characters in this scene appears to be an allegory of the contrasting viewpoints between God and the devil. While this is hardly an original observation, I feel there are some more subtle aspects of this allegory that are not often discussed and are well worth addressing in this video. For those that haven't already, I strongly recommend watching this channel's Underworld video before continuing on with this one. Many of this video's assertions rest on the conclusions reached in that installment, and I feel the character dynamic I'm addressing today was really solidified by the events talked about there, namely what transpired with the Egyptian settlers and what their ultimate fate was. I also want to acknowledge up front that eventually these two characters are indeed given a backstory and origin that fleshes them out as characters and not merely as metaphors. I will absolutely be addressing this more in depth towards the end of this video, but for the bulk of it, I will be focusing on the metaphorical side of things. This is because they spend the vast majority of the series, and the story's timeline, as representations of pure good and absolute evil, neither of whom are exactly human anymore, before finally being given character arcs at what is virtually the end of the series. All of that said, I think there are several fantastic reasons these two were eventually humanized that I will definitely be getting into. Let's start with the Man in Black, as I believe the comparison between him and the devil is much simpler to summarize. Throughout the course of the series, we see the Man in Black take many forms, always for the purpose of deceiving those he encounters into behaving the way he wants them to. While he is typically unable to directly force people's choices,
Could you help me up? No. Sorry, I can't.
he has become a master at manipulating those he meets, often presenting them with temptations or offering them deals.
If you'll do this for me. What if I told you that you could have anything you wanted? What if I said you could have anything in the entire world?
As luck would have it, I found these on one of the officers outside. I think they'll work. But before I try, I need to know that you will help me.
Yes, of course.
You do anything I ask.
Yes, yeah, I promise.
Then we're agreed.
Other times, he presents himself as someone who speaks on Jacob's behalf. In other words, a false prophet.
Are you Jacob?
I'm Christian, but I can speak on his behalf.
His primary motivation is to escape his imprisonment, though once he has done so, it is heavily implied that he would spread his destructive power and influence without the restraint of Jacob's rules.
Think of this wine as what you keep calling hell. There's many other names for it, too. Malevolence, evil, darkness. And here it is, swirling around in the bottle, unable to get out, because if it did, it would spread. Cork is this island. And it's the only thing keeping the darkness where it belongs.
His secondary motivation is to prove to Jacob that the human race is inherently sinful and irredeemable. He is offended and enraged that his brother has chosen these people over him, and though it is not as important to him as his primary objective of escaping, he wants Jacob to see how wrong he is. For the purposes of both these goals, the Man in Black's deceptions are always aimed at causing conflict and death. Now let's move on to Jacob. By the time 815 crashes on the island, Jacob is, essentially, an all-knowing entity with a greater design. He's also obsessed with testing and proving humanity is ultimately redeemable by allowing them to make their own choices without him influencing their moral decisions. Moral being the key word there. He has followers that believe in him without ever seeing him. They interpret his great design for themselves, often using these interpretations as a justification for their own destructive actions. They commit horrible acts in his name.
What's going on? Where's Ryan?
He's at his tent. Are you
It's
alone?
time to get them.
But you said tomorrow.
Jacob wants it to happen now.
You've always been a loyalist, Mikhail. Now I'm asking you to trust me.
To trust Jacob, who told me to do that.
Why would Jacob ask you to lie to your own people?
They only welcomed those they deemed acceptable into their ranks, while excluding all others as unworthy.
And what did you do with the people that you took? The kids.
We give them a better life.
Better than what?
Better than yours.
He's making a case for this woman, Ana Lucia. I think she'd be a valuable member of our society. But between you and me, I don't see it.
He can perform miracles and cure cancer. Though when he does, which is rare, he demands a steep price.
A man came to me. A man I have never met. He told me that he could save my son's life. But I will have to come here, to this island, where I would have a new job. And I could never see my boy again. His name was Jacob.
Why would I stay?
Because if you do, I will cure your sister's cancer. You've done extensive workups on all of us. Have you seen even a trace of cancer?
That's here. And being that you won't let me bring my sister here, I'm gonna
Jacob
leave
said he would
more.
take care of it himself.
Now, back in the days of the Black Rock and before, the Jacob we meet is more temperamental than the one we see in the 20th and 21st centuries.
You think you're dead? Stop! Stop! You think you're dead? Why should I stop?
Because I want to live!
It seems to me he is absolutely still a metaphor for God. However, at this stage, he is far closer to the Old Testament representation of God. Less compassionate and more angry, vengeful, and to be feared. Prior to meeting Richard, Jacob seems to have been leading people to the island for the sole purpose of trying to prove the Man in Black wrong, but then doing nothing whatsoever to prevent the Man in Black from being able to simply slaughter them, as we see him do in the case of the Black Rock crew. Richard confronts Jacob with this very problem, to which Jacob is unable to offer a defense. It is then, through meeting with Richard, and then using this man as a vessel of sorts, that Jacob begins to transition into the more New Testament representation of God we see in the more modern scenes. But the key takeaway from this first interaction with Richard is that Jacob wants to interfere as little as possible. In his mind, if he steps in and tells anyone how to behave, it defeats the point he's trying to prove, not only to the Man in Black, but also to himself, about the true nature of humanity.
If you brought them here, why didn't you help them?
Because I wanted them to help themselves. To know the difference between right and wrong without me having to tell them. It's all meaningless if I have to force them to do anything.
And while Richard does convince Jacob that if he does absolutely nothing, then people will be that much more susceptible to the Man in Black's whims and manipulations, it seems clear his involvement in the society of the others was still bare minimum. He wanted them to be told of his existence without ever getting to see him, and to be told of his greater plan or design without ever knowing what it was. He gave them something to believe in, something to help guide them and help them avoid being led astray. And I believe he began protecting them from direct harm from the Man in Black. But beyond that, I think he let them interpret his will for themselves. And I very much doubt he ever explicitly told any of the others what to do or what not to do. At least nothing of great moral significance. Throughout the series, we see examples of people saying that they're acting or speaking on Jacob's behalf, when in fact they aren't.
Jacob sent me. Jacob wanted it done.
You were the one who wanted him here.
Jacob wanted him here. He's important. He's special.
Although, when Ben finally meets Jacob, he says the following.
Richard would bring me your instructions, all those slips of paper, all those lists. And I never questioned anything. I did as I was told.
This suggests that Jacob really did give some instructions to his followers. However, as I said in the previous section, and based on Jacob's demonstrated behavior, I don't think these instructions ever bore moral weight. So what's an example of something Jacob would have actually instructed his people to do? I think the best example is the building of the runway on Hydra Island. Without knowing why they were building it, doing so was neither a morally good nor bad action. As for the lists, Jacob may also have had input on who was to be recruited by Middleos off island. But I'm certain he never stipulated how they were to be recruited, or that they should not be given a choice. That's why, when it comes to things such as abducting children, I'm confident this was not done at Jacob's request, and instead, Ben is merely claiming he is acting on Jacob's instructions when his people question him.
They're children. Do they really belong here?
They're on the list, Juliet. Who are we to question who's on the list and who's not?
As for why the others didn't simply reach out to all of the 815 survivors after the crash, I think, in part, it comes back to this religious commentary. The truth is, I actually believe Jacob would have wanted every person on the island to come together and coexist peacefully. This would have gone towards proving him right in his disagreement with the Man in Black about humanity's nature. And it would have made it that much more difficult for the Man in Black to manipulate candidates into killing each other. The problem, however, is that the others view themselves as the good guys, serving the higher power that is Jacob. Like many religious people, they view themselves as better than. I think most of them, in addition to Ben, were unwilling to welcome a bunch of murderers, drug addicts, drug smugglers, torturers, con artists, mob enforcers, diamond thieves, etc., into their community. This sentiment is actually expressed by several of the others over the course of seasons 2 and 3.
Nathan, did you kill him?
Nathan was not a good person. That's why he wasn't on the list.
You are not on the list because you are flawed. Because you are angry. And weak. And frightened.
You might say this is hypocritical, and I would agree. But I think that's the point. Again, I think it's absolutely part of the commentary going on. But okay, even if Jacob didn't tell the others to do any of the horrible things we see them do over the course of the series, he also never stopped them. So doesn't that make him just as guilty? Along the same lines, if he brought the 815ers to the island, doesn't that make him responsible for the crash and those that died in it? Well, I think it really comes down to what point you stop holding Jacob responsible. Is he responsible for that plane being loaded with candidates? From a certain point of view, I think most of us would agree he is. But is he responsible for the button not getting pushed, which resulted in the crash? Is he responsible for the plane losing communication and changing course? Is he responsible for every single choice, action, and event that resulted in every single passenger ending up on that plane? If you do think he is somehow responsible for all of those things, then is there anything at all he isn't responsible for? Where is the line drawn? This is a philosophical debate with no end in sight, and I think that's the point. If one believes in an all-knowing, all-powerful God, then one must also believe he is capable of curing cancer, preventing atrocities, etc. Yet, often he doesn't. So, do we believe in a God who allows things to happen, such as genocide, children getting abducted, or getting cancer? If we do, should we not hold him accountable for the terrible things that happen in this world? If not, why not? Alternatively, why might he allow these things to happen? There's obviously no right or wrong answer to this, but it's absolutely worth thinking about. If one doesn't believe in God, it may be even easier to look at Jacob's inaction as culpability. Though I still feel that risks missing the deeper philosophical questions being posed about morality, the existence of evil, and so on. For those that do believe in God, yet label Jacob a villain, I think they're missing the exact point the show wants them to consider. If Jacob's a villain, then is God? If you don't hold God responsible in the same way, why not? To me, this whole debate we as the audience have over how much blame Jacob deserves is a testament to how well the writers nailed this allegory. If God exists, then, like Jacob, he lets terrible things happen without interfering. Not to mention, he lets his followers do terrible things in his name without interfering. It's up to us as individuals to reconcile that with how good and or powerful we believe he is. As I mentioned near the start of this video, the origins of Jacob and the Man in Black are eventually revealed near the very end of the series. In this episode, both are introduced for the first time as human beings, both of whom have decent qualities and both of whom have flaws. Both demonstrate compassion.
Will you stay with me, Jacob? Please? Yes. For a while.
And both commit horrible acts.
You want to leave this place, brother? Then go.
Neither is purely good nor purely evil. It is only after several centuries that one eventually ascends to the level of pure benevolence, and the other descends to the level of irredeemable malevolence. In that same time span, both of them have also become much more powerful. It is because of this combination of factors that I say neither one was exactly human by the time most of the events of the show take place. Instead, as the supreme wielders of the island's power, they have become the personifications of the great good and the terrible destruction the island's energy is capable of. Which brings me to my next point. Over the years, I've seen people talk about the island as having its own will, independent from both Jacob and the Man in Black. This is not an interpretation I personally share. The way I see it, the island, the source, or the energy, what have you, is a morally neutral and indifferent force of nature. It is people that project and interpret meaning from it, oftentimes coming into conflict with those that have contradicting beliefs and interpretations. The origin of Jacob and the Man in Black's conflict is a perfect example of this. The Man in Black believed Mother was delusional and that he never belonged on the island, whereas Jacob believed Mother's assertions about the light at least enough to feel he needed to stay and accept the role as protector. It doesn't matter if either of them was right or not. Personally, I think they both were in a way. The point is, this difference in beliefs is what originated the entire conflict at the root of this story. Or, more accurately, It was their shared inability to accept and respect this difference in beliefs. Anyways, back to my argument about the island being a neutral natural force. Every time a character says the island wants something, in reality it is either Jacob, the man in black, or both that wants it. When it's said that the island brought them there for a reason, the truth is Jacob brought them there for a reason. When Locke communicates with the island, or thinks that it demanded a sacrifice, the reality is it's the man in black's will he is divining. When characters exclaim that the island wants them to come back, the truth is both Jacob and the man in black want this. My point is that I prefer the interpretation that the power of the island is a purely neutral, natural force, and that even the representations of a force for good and a force for evil originated from mankind. To me, this is far more compelling. The fact that the man in black is revealed to once have been a man with empathy and compassion serves to warn us that any one of us can become a monster if we don't guard against it. And the fact that Jacob is revealed to have been a man who committed terrible acts serves as a demonstration that even those of us that have made the worst mistakes can find redemption. Sure, without a centuries-long lifespan, none of us is likely to ever become purely good, but that also means none of us is likely to become truly irredeemable either. Well, that's probably enough religious talk from a man of science for today. Until next time, namaste and good luck.
Oh, hello there. If you're like me, you can't get enough of Lost. So if you'd like to be notified when more videos like this one arrive, just click right up here to subscribe. In the meantime, if you'd like to check out other videos like this one, just click right up here. Or, if you'd like to check out a fun talk show filmed in an abandoned Dharma broadcast station, just click right over here. And as always, remember that this channel is like the island. It wants you to come back.